talk to them when you were learning about us, and how did that go?
Yeah, that's it's still going. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so the way, it's kind of unique because my parents, because they were not around Catholics a lot, so they didn't have any, hostilities or animosities or anything like that. It was pure curiosity. And so my father was not, he was kind of, hey, I don't know about this, and he was just kind of like, what about the Pope and the things like that, And my mom, I remember when I came to the church, I called her and I said, "Mom," I said, I'm a Catholic, and she said, "Well, what?" She's like, "Well, does that mean that you believe in the Trinity?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "Okay, I'm good." All right, Mom. Yeah. So, and it was endearing because she didn't really, she didn't have like, well, what about this and what about that and what about that? It was more of like, I really don't know. And so my mom was honestly, she was more receptive, but my grandfather and dad, they're still kind of, what is this, but it's been great to have conversations with them about it and just kind of have that ongoing. So good question.
You mentioned Anglican, and then you said Catholic. So, when did you switch from Anglican to Catholic?
So in 2008, I converted to Catholicism, and
what made you change?
Well, really, it was the whole process of me first encountering Catholics to understand what they believed, and then it was my own. Some people say they read themselves in the church. I started reading the church fathers. I started reading Aquinas, and I would say Augustine, and then I started understanding that. And I'll give you an example. When I read the Summa, even though I didn't understand most of it, but what I did see in St. Thomas Aquinas was an intellectual courage that I had never seen before. I saw somebody dealing with questions that, one, some of the questions I had never thought of before, and two, the ones that I did think of, he had an answer. So seeing the intellectual courage of the church fathers, and then realizing that, why have I neglected the church fathers? Why have I not read, St. Ignatius of Antioch? Why have I not read some of these other thinkers at the time, Athanasius and some of the other people? And so putting together the pieces and layers of foundation that, in 325, they were, seeing all of these councils and seeing that the church had evolved and dealt with many difficulties over time, that was very powerful for me. So I would say that through the grace of God, through reading and having encounters where people were courageous enough to talk with me about the faith, and I'll make it even really simple, just going to Mass, just sitting in the Mass. I didn't know what was going on. I was sitting in the Mass, listening, realizing that I'd been told the Mass is all about Mary and that Jesus is not mentioned. I'm like, that's not true. And so I just kind of shattering some of these misconceptions I had really culminated to me to go into faith. So
in your travels to Oxford and Princeton, in your surroundings, did you find more of an apathy towards Catholicism or more of an antagonism towards Catholicism?
That's also a great question. I would say at Oxford, I would say at England, there was a subtle antagonism. And one of the things that I started to realize was, going back to St. John Henry Newman, I got to see who he was at Oxford. I mean, he was the Don of all Dons at Oxford. And he had an accoutrement of it was his university. And so when he converted to Catholicism, it was almost like he was thrown on the street and just, you're nobody. So I think, although during that time things have changed, and obviously there's not laws against being Catholic, but which there was in England. So so seeing that there are still remnants of those kind of what I would say just realities that were there that linger. But I would just say that Oxford, I think intellectualism, I would say that in some ways that's the faith of the day. Being an intellectual, not having what they call ad hominem personal attacks. You need to be able to talk about everything without getting upset, and so I think that's the reality of what I would say what would be as intellectualism is vaunted. But there's still a lingering, I would say, a remnant of antagonism there.
I'm curious to know more about your current role as a financial planner and the ways that you teach financial stewardship to some of these NFL guys that you work with.
Yeah, no, another great question. Well, for me, I believe in, the reality is that I believe that everything we do is a glorification to God. So I look at my role as a financial literacy advocate as a sanctification of my work. I look at it as an opportunity to extend to others a reality that we can be, as a Catholic, we can be people who are engaging, that take our work very seriously. We have a openness and a really, and I want to say a type of compassion for listening to others. And so for me, I see it as an opportunity to share my faith in ways that are not always direct, or maybe I don't vocalize some of the things that I believe, but people see that I enjoy what I'm doing. I take it very seriously. I'm collaborative, and I want to work with others. And really, for athletes in general, it's kind of saying, hey, I've been in your shoes. I understand some of the dynamics that's going on, but I try to have the conversation be more holistic in the sense of, hey, this is a component of your life, but there are other elements of your life that really go in line with what you're doing. And so I look at it that way as an opportunity to really to allow my faith to show through to others by doing things that that just being a listener sometimes can be a very profound thing for people in business. So that's how I do that.
How has your career path with Oxford and Princeton affected your relationship with former friends and colleagues in the NFL?
You're saying how?
Yeah, how do they react to your?
Oh.
Do you offer them recommendations on medieval theology?
Well, the Oxford rugby guys are, they're still hung up on why I like Irish writers. But I mean, it's really, with the Oxford community, it's totally acceptable in the sense of, hey, for them, I think it's, for some of them, it's like, hey, you can be Catholic and I'm serious about your faith and be also a serious intellectual. And some people who are outside of the faith may have an issue. That's like a contrast for them. But kind of allowing them to see that that's something that I pursue and I'm open to, and that I really engage. Princeton, I would say Princeton, even though Princeton has a phenomenal Catholic community now, but I would say Princeton as a whole, there's definitely more of, I won't use the word hostility, but I think there's more of like how are you Catholic and really serious about your academic discipline. I think that's something that really exists at Princeton. I think it's grown more over the past 10 years, but I think it's something that really is there. And my NFL guys are like, hey man, do you, as long as you're passionate about what you're doing. But I will say the last thing in the NFL locker room, the one thing that I noticed was that, and I'm not saying that, the one thing I noticed is that if you declared yourself anything, you could be, I don't know what it is, but if you said you were Catholic or you said you were a Christian or whatever, guys were watching you. and they were watching you hard. And because they wanted to make sure that, hey, if you're saying that, then we're going to make sure that you are that. So it was very fun, it's kind of dynamic. But anyway, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Many thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. I wanted to just mention that our next upcoming talk is going to be on September 18th. It's going to be Father Jonathan Duncan, whose title is Just the Right Kind of Weird, explaining Catholicism's strangeness to your non-Catholic friends and neighbors. Great title, right, from Father Duncan. So please think about joining us for that. That'll be September 18th. At 6 p.m. here at Christ on Main. Also, too, I wanted to thank again our Century Club members who made hosting these monthly talks possible. We will also, too, send out a survey. If you wouldn't mind getting back to us, right, on any input you have for our talks, and also, too, if you have suggestions for speakers, please include that in the survey. Finally, I would like to thank our event staff for putting on, not only hosting the event, but also, too, putting on a wonderful reception for us. They've been very generous with their time. And one more thanks to Derrick Chambers for joining us.